Welcome back to Think Tech, and welcome to our downtown forum and our program featuring David Lassner's views and visions for the university. I'm Jay Fidel. And once upon a time, the late federal judge Sam King was riding circuit in California. It was raining that day, and in jest, one of the lawyers in the courtroom asked him if he could enter a minute order to stop the rain. And Sam King did that. A formal minute order, and the rain stopped. Powerful man. Years later, he came back in the same court on the same case, and the same lawyer thanked him but mentioned that now California was having a drought, and could he please enter another order for a little rain, repealing his earlier order. And Sam King did that, and immediately it started raining. What a guy. So now you're president of the university, Dr. Lassner. Would it be too much trouble if you could enter a sort of a little systems memo stopping the storm right now? We know you can do it. Anyway, congratulations. It's nice to have you there. Thanks for coming. Thanks to all of you for coming, for braving the elements, even in a potential sense, and to be with us and have this forum with David today. On to our program. Our sponsor is Hawaii Business Magazine. Steve Petronic from Hawaii Business Magazine is here to make remarks for the magazine. Please welcome Steve Petronic, editor of Hawaii Business.
Thanks, Jay. Thank you, Jay, for arranging this. I was trying to think of who are the people you want to hear from right now. Aside from maybe the two main candidates for governor, I think David is probably right up there with people you want to hear. They're in the news. They have things to tell us. We want to hear what they have to say. So it's a privilege to be sponsoring the Think Tech events. Thank you, Jay, for arranging all these. It's also nice to have a university president who knows about Hawaii for a change. I think that's a great change. Hopefully you can hit the ground running as opposed to having to figure out how things work here. I thought that the best president that we had over the last few decades was David McLean, who also was able to hit the ground running. Sadly, he was decided to retire, but I thought that he brought some changes that I thought were good for the university in the short time that he was there. I'm looking forward to hearing what Mr. Lassner has to say, and I'm sure all of you are. So I'm going to turn it back over to Jay. Thank you, Jay.
Steve Petronic, Hawaii Business. So housekeeping will take a minute or two to make sure that you know who's next to you. We always do that. 1 minute only. Look to your right, look to your left, introduce yourself, maybe pass your business card both ways, and tell the guy at your left or right what your connection with UH is, and while you're here. Okay, time's up, back to work. You know, we are live streaming the audio of this program in full on Spreaker.com. And that actually is embedded in thinktechhawaii.com. So if you'd like to let your friends know that they can catch it live, you can call them or text them and tell them they can catch it live on thinktechhawaii.com right now. Whole program verbatim. So if you want to make that call, it's a good time to do that. If you haven't done so, take out your smartphone, open the browser, and go to LiveSift. Okay, and enter the code. Go UH. Sounds like something for the rainbows. So we want to know who's here. And the first question, and David Lassner wants to know who's here. Adjust your remarks. So pick a category that best describes you. Business? Oh, not in the same order. Okay, watch the categories. Business, government, faculty, student, UH administration, other. So let's get a handle on who we have in the room. Courtesy livesift.com. Well, that's good. Business should be here. That should be the majority. Okay. Okay, 10 seconds more to vote. All right. Now we're going to the second question. We want you to describe the categories that best describe your reason for being here. Again, a ranking rather than a single selection. Okay, why are you here? What do you want to hear? Okay. David Lassner's vision. You want to learn about UH? Faculty welfare, student welfare, UH administration welfare, other. Livesift.com. It's fabulous. UH product, for sure. Okay, no surprise there either, but now we know where we stand. On to the program. David Lassner, of course, the new president of the university, our university. Just as it is critically important to our community, he as president is critically important to it and our community and us. Take a look at the extended bio contained in the bio sheet we gave you. For me, there's more. David is a familiar figure at UH. He's been in so many groups, task forces, committees, provided a huge value in his service and contributions to those groups, thus to the university, thus to the state. I remember my time with him on the board of the High Tech Development Corporation. It seems like yesterday, it was 10 years ago. Look at what's happened since. UH has had thrills and spills all the way through. But David is a player for the long term. He really knows the territory, as Steve Petranek said. We should see him as a long-term president, somebody who will create an administration that will take the university to the next level, unprecedented. So we're looking for David for big things. Look to him to take UH out of the tower and off the hill. That's College Hill, but it's also everything else. You have to tell us about College Hill. And fashion a close and reciprocal relationship between the UH and the downtown business community. We want this engagement to bring all of us closer, starting today. At the base of it, we wish him success. We look forward to a new chapter that will realize the destiny of the school and the state. In some ways, it's a turning point. With David's creativity, skill, familiarity with the school and the community, he could reinvent UH. Let's empower him to do that. If we want him to take us to the next level, we need to support him, not sit in judgment on his discretion. You want to get good results from any executive, that's what you do. As UH goes, so goes Hawaii, and now as David Lassner goes, so goes UH. We have to see him in that context as CEO of one of the largest institutions in the state. Of course there are challenges. We want him to take the risks. We want him to shoot high, to implement the grandest vision possible. That's why most of you are here. For the best education, the best science, the best contribution. We will all be the beneficiaries. Education, everyone knows, is our future. Higher education will create the leaders of our tomorrow. We are or should be eager to see a fair number of them come from UH and stay here. In that way, we must see UH as the engine of our future. During David Lassner's remarks today, you can go to LiveSift and start sending your questions, even now. And I will choose the questions to pose. You'll see them on the screen. We do want to know about deferred maintenance, about the budget, about tuition, about ball fields in College Hill, and I called it wonderment. Want to know about athletics, autonomy, the chancellor issue, of course, the way the Board of Regents works, including the Sunshine Law, and anything else you may want to ask him. And he told me early that he's happy with questions. So we'd like your views, David, your vision on everything. So after Q&A, we'll give him a minute to summarize, okay, what he'd like to leave with you. So ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure that I give you David Lassner, President of the University of Hawaii, the man who will take it and us to a new chapter of education, achievement, community, global recognition, and influence. Imua, David. How about a really warm welcome for Dr. David Lassner?
That was surely the best introduction anyone could ever hope for. Thank you, Jay. So when I met Jay, since we're going to embarrass each other, he was doing some kind of real estate law thing, and it was at the BOMA, the Building Owners and Management, and this real estate guy got interested in technology, and they put together a luncheon program and figured they'd invite that geek from UH to come down and talk with them, and I've seen him pretty regularly ever since. So thank you all for coming. A lot of you know me, and a lot of you, some of you don't yet. What I'd like to do is share, I'll call it my vision for UH, and this is a vision that we've crafted collaboratively, going back to, really we started in January, trying to look at the themes for where UH had to head to shape our strategies and our planning about the budget, and how to address accountability as well within the institution. So I'm going to talk about this in terms of 4 strategic directions, and that just turned out to be a pretty handy way to frame our goals and aspirations, our strategies and our tactics, and our metrics for accountability and targets. And I'll start with the first one, which is really the heart of what any institution of higher education is about, which is increasing the educational capital of the state. For us, that means educating more students, it means increasing participation, and it means increasing success. And that needs to not just be going after the low-hanging fruit, the students from the middle class who tend to go to college anyway, but really reaching out into the traditional non-participating groups. The data suggests that, and this is a study out of Georgetown, that 65% of the jobs in Hawaii will require some post-secondary education in 2008. We've adopted a goal, much like many states, and this is a statewide goal, not just UH's, and you've probably heard of 55 by 25. Can I say raise your hands, or do I have to make you live sift? Yeah, okay, thank you. So I'm glad to see it's working. So the 55 by 25 is really a campaign to get the word out in the community that we all need to get more students engaged in higher education. That isn't just 18-year-olds. That's returning adults, that's military and veterans, and that's both to address the workforce needs of the state for a new economy, but it's also for the students themselves. So the data, depending on whose data you look at, a college education is worth $800,000, $1 million over the course of a lifetime. It also helps fill jobs, and those of you who are employers, Hawaii has always had a traditionally low unemployment rate, and I know folks in the software industry, for example, are always struggling and often recruiting from the mainland, and that's true of many industries, including higher education often. And what we're really committed to is developing our population for our jobs and for service in our communities. And it's not just about jobs, and it's not just about economic impact. It's also about preparing our students to be contributing members in the community in a civic sense, to advance community interests, and to really advance their families as well. So our current number of degree holders is about 43%. Getting from 43% to 55% by 2025 calls for some pretty aggressive actions and really stepping up our game. And that's something that we now track on an annual basis to see how many more graduates are we producing. And by graduates, that doesn't just mean four-year degrees and graduate degrees. That includes our community college degrees, and it also includes what we call our certificates of achievement, which are one-year certificates in our community colleges, which also prepare people for the workforce. This morning, the Board of Regents approved a new one in agri-pharmatech at Windward Community College, so that we'll produce employees for one of David's companies, I'm sure. So how do we do this? And it starts with kids, because that is the largest source, and we don't have a great, what we call going rate, the number of high school students from Hawaii, particularly from our public schools, who go to college, and in this case, we're joined at the hips with our brethren at HPU, Chaminade, BYUH. This is a goal for the state, not just for UH, but we need to do our part as the only public institution of higher education in the state. So we need to strengthen the pipeline from K-12. And that's not just showing up senior year recruiting. That's about building in students the belief, and their families, the belief that their kids can go to college. We have a large immigrant population. We have a large low-income population. These tend to be first-generation families for participating in higher education. And that's a group we really need to reach out holistically, starting much earlier than the senior year of high school. In fact, most people believe you've got to catch this by middle school or so, and have kids believing that college is available to them. So we're joined at the hip on this with our partners at the DOE, and particularly through the P20 Partnerships for Education program, which I attended one of my first, I've just gone to a couple of sort of presidents kinds of conferences to see what college and university presidents talk about. I've been on the geek circuit for many years. And, we've got one of the best P20 programs in the country. Almost everybody has one, but almost none of them are as effective as the one we have that was started up by Tammy Chun and now headed by Karen Lee. We also have to reach out specially to some of the populations that have been non-participating. So we spent about 3/4 of a day with Kamehameha Schools last month with a group of about 40 leaders from both the University of Hawaii system and Kamehameha Schools statewide, not just Kapalama, to look at how can we bring more Native Hawaiians into higher education. And that's part of our special mission as the University of Hawaii. And when we find partners like that, that's their mission and it's our mission. And we got lots of kind of interesting projects together. But pulling it together institutionally across the state brings incredible power. And I probably don't need to say to most of you that they touch Native Hawaiian students throughout the state, not just those who attend their campuses on different islands, but also in the public schools, also in the in some of the immersion and Hawaiian-focused charter schools as well. We've got a lot of strategies about this as well to make those connections with high school. We've got summer bridge programs where we get students used to being on a campus so they don't think it's a strange thing to do. We bring them to campus for open houses. I know Dean Crouch does that to get high school kids and younger to see what it is that engineering students and faculty are doing and get them interested very early. We're doing a lot of work on aligning high school graduation requirements. So Hawaii is a Common Core state, and we're not getting, we're slowed down a little on the high stakes testing, as is probably appropriate, but we're not backing off of that, the rigorous graduation standards. And the University of Hawaii is working very hard to align with the DOE, and we use the term often college and career ready. And the DOE did, with our including with our support, adopt a more rigorous option for a high-performance diploma. And we really want to align so that every Hawaii high school graduate is ready for college. And we're pushing harder now on some very innovative programs in, I'll just broadly call them early college, dual enrollment and concurrent enrollment, where we start having kids in high school in particular taking college-level courses either on our college campuses or taught in the high schools. And this is a program that Arnie Duncan, when he was here, the U.S. Secretary of Education, visited a partnership between Waipahu High School and Leeward Community College, where we were getting college courses into the high school so that those kids, when they graduate from high school, they're not just ready for college, they've already got a couple courses under their belt. And the data shows that those kids are much more likely to succeed on time than kids who show up not only with no credit, but often unprepared. And I think many of you have seen the data, but half of the students who come out of the public high schools, more than half in fact, aren't ready for college level math and English. So that's something we're working on very carefully with them. I don't want to beat this up except to say this is a whole set of strategies, and I can go on. But for us, success starts long before students show up on our campuses. There's a bunch of things that we have to do when they do appear on our campuses. So one set of activities that we've been engaged in, and we participate in a whole lot of national clubs. And it turns out on a number of things, we really are national leaders at some of our tactics and strategies. And when we participate in these national initiatives, we also find lots of great ideas from other places. One of the things we've been doing is establishing pathways for all of our degree programs. UH Manoa has really done a great job with this, and I see Christine's in the back there has had a big piece of it, so that when students show up, we don't just, a college catalog has been characterized as a buffet, and if you graze at the buffet table, you don't graduate. So what we're trying to do is introduce a set of strategies so that students come in and they actively are working toward a degree along the way. And that starts with pathways, laying out 4-year sets of courses, 15 credits per semester. And so you guys are smart, you can probably do the math. Our degrees take 120 credits. Most of our students were taking less than 15 credits per semester. So if you do the math, you're not going to finish in 4 years if you're taking less than 15 credits unless you're piling up in summer school. So that's why we launched the 15 to Finish program, for example. The 15 to Finish program that we initiated is actually in use in 23 other states now. When I show up at a meeting, people say, "Oh, Hawaii, you're the 15 to Finish place," and all of our collateral materials. What the pathways are about are taking the right 15. And that's the work that, again, UH Manoa has really led. But part of this is beyond the students who show up as freshmen at UH Manoa. These pathways are being made friendly for our community college transfer students. So one of the ways to keep college affordable, Jim Sean, is to create these pathways that flow people from community colleges, which are extremely affordable, into our 4-year campuses. And we've started looking at the math on that. And Hawaii Community College and UH Hilo announced that they can do a 4-year degree from UH Hilo for $18,000 in tuition if you start at Hawaii and move into UH Hilo. That number goes up to about $25,000 with UH Manoa. So it's still extremely affordable for residents. So these pathways, by getting our faculty together, provide a fast and potentially affordable way. And we don't, some students will start at a community college because it's more affordable, but more often they're smaller, they're teaching focused, people may be more comfortable starting there. They're open door admissions. Not every student can come out of high school and be admitted to a UH Manoa, which is a research university and does have admission standards unlike and much higher than the rest of the whole UH system. Part of this is strengthening our developmental and remedial education programs. This came up this morning in one of our board meetings, but if a student shows up at a UH campus and wants to get, say, an engineering degree that requires calculus, if they are not calculus ready when they enter the door, it is almost impossible to imagine a pathway forward to a technical degree. That pathway is not going to end in 4 years. You just fall too far behind if you're taking pre-calculus courses in your first year or so, instead of taking calculus and moving into the core scientific disciplines. So those are the sorts of things we're working with in creative ways. And what the research shows now is that the best way to deal with those remedial developmental education approaches is to begin to mainstream it into the curriculum and build it alongside as a co-curricular activity within the discipline rather than, and it's been called, I would call it the Roach Motel sometimes. The concern is that once students fall into a developmental pathway, they may never get out of it and emerge into a degree program. Many do very successfully, but some don't, and that's a real problem for us throughout the state. So getting at that sooner is, of course, the way we want to do it. We're looking at special populations and how we help them. So veterans have special needs. So we have a veterans task force looking at how to help them succeed. Thank you, Senator Sparrow for encouraging us along this path. Same thing with Native Hawaiian support systems. UH Hilo has a Center for Pacific Island students. They have the highest percentage of Pacific Islanders in the UH system. So these are things we need to do to nurture special populations and help them succeed. There was a recent article in the New York Times about who graduates from college. And it's a very simple message, but one of the most powerful things that we can do to support success for students who are not from the traditionally successful populations, low income, special ethnic groups, first generation participant in their family, is to show them examples of people who have succeeded. So those can be seniors who are about to graduate, those can be faculty members, to let them know, your first semester, your first year is going to be hard because this is not what you were prepared for. But let me tell you, it was the same for me, and I made it. And boy, that's a really cheap intervention, and it's a really effective intervention as well, the research indicates. So we're looking at those. We've done quite a good job about Native Hawaiian student enrollments as a system. Our Native Hawaiian enrollment is above the Native Hawaiian population of the state now. That's an incredible thing to say. That's not true across all of our campuses, but that's good. But we also need to look at the success gaps. So we've talked about access gaps and success gaps. So are they graduating at the same rate? And you can look at this with each of the populations that we're paying special attention to, low-income students. The community colleges have started looking at how we're doing with our Filipino students, with our adult returning learners. So our Pacific Island students, we are under-enrolling and underperforming with some of these groups, and we need to pay attention to both of those things. We do surveys now about when the students leave us, why did they leave? When we admit students and they decide not to come, why did they decide not to come and where did they go instead? And we've got a great program. In fact, again, I came from a Board of Regents meeting, as you can tell this morning. We showed off our STAR system, which is an information system developed in-house at UH Manoa, but serving the entire University of Hawaii system. And we're looking at a GPS for your graduation path. So once you think about you're on a path and it's a 4-year path to graduation, if you veer off it, rather than abandon you, we recalculate a path from where you are to get you back on track. So maybe you need to take 18 credits in one semester. Maybe you need to take summer school. If you changed majors, what's the best way to get from the path you are on? Just like with the GPS, if you change destinations en route, it recalculates. And we're planning to tie that into our student information system to drive registration as well. And for that, we're looking, there's philanthropic support for that. We just got a $250,000 small grant from the Gates Foundation to really help us pioneer the work, but we think they may invest more heavily once we show success. So let me just mention 2 more things and then keep moving. One is the way we align our curricula with workforce. Our professional schools are fabulous at this. Our community colleges are fabulous at this. And there's more we can do at making sure that as we're thinking about curriculum, and many of our students aren't coming to UH to get a degree that leads them to a job in their field. And so we need to appreciate that. A big part of a college education is developing maturity, a behavior of community spirit, civic engagement, understanding of society, understanding of media and literacy in a changing world, and perhaps most importantly, becoming a lifelong learner so that you can survive in the decades ahead, which will be very different than the decades past. But for some of our curricula, we do want alignment, so making sure we stay active at that. And frankly, for graduating more students here, a huge new tool in our arsenal is UH West Oahu. This was 40 years of waiting for some of our faculty and administrators. The campus is opened, is hugely successful. It is our fastest growing campus. The preliminary numbers, in fact, right now for fall, it looks like the only campus that currently, year against year, is growing, and it's growing faster than 10% over last year. Our other campuses are flat or even slightly declining right now. And we need to nurture that. It's only been open for 2 years, and make sure it succeeds. And again, that was a data-driven decision, that's where the population growth was. That was where the need for higher education was. That was where the need for educated workforce was. And we needed to make that investment. Similarly, by the way, the next area of the state that was underserved by public higher education is West Hawaii. And that's why we decided to really make the push to invest in our new Palama Nui facility, part of Hawaii Community College. The next initiative I want to talk about, and I'm going to do innovation last because I know it'll be nearest and dearest to your hearts. We call it 21st Century Facilities. And Jay mentioned our deferred maintenance backlog. It's been in the news, $487 million. We put it in the news because we really want to fix it. That $487 million represents maintenance work that should have been done to UH facilities across the state that was not done. And generally speaking, the reason for that is the UH asked the legislature for the money. The legislature didn't give UH the money. And then UH came back the next year and asked again and didn't get the money again. And this backlog piled up over many years. Last year we came in with a different plan. We said, let us use tuition revenue to issue revenue bonds to fix the backlog over a multi-year period. The problem is well understood. The solution was not accepted. Big solutions aren't always accepted in the first year at the legislature. We will come back with some other ideas again, but frankly, there's no easy answer here. There's state money and there's tuition money, and if we're going to get this thing fixed, it's going to be one of those two, unless we grow a billionaire who decides to just invest the money. But in general, billionaires aren't that interested in deferred maintenance backlogs. We'll come back with ideas. As President McLean used to say, we don't have a monopoly on good ideas. We are open to solutions, but we are really committed to do that. Right now it's looking to us that given the state's capacity, that's something we're probably going to have to do with a combination and an agreement with the state about what the state is willing to invest in and what it expects us to invest in, which essentially means investing tuition dollars. There is nothing wrong with investing tuition in facilities. That's part of what students pay tuition and fees for, and it happens at colleges and universities around the country, but it hasn't happened in Hawaii yet. So it is a new conversation, and we will have it again this legislative session. So we will be back. There's a lot more we can do also to improve the way we do construction. We had a task force look at that to become more efficient, more accountable, more streamlined, more successful in terms of on-time, on-budget performance. I will say that probably 95% of our projects come in on time, on budget, but those aren't the ones that end up in the paper because that doesn't sell ads. And unfortunately, that is one of the things that our friends in the media have to worry about. A second aspect of our facilities is making them more sustainable. So there are a lot of strategies about that. Our energy consumption is a huge problem for us. We're probably at the range of $40 million a year to our friends in the electrical utility. Even as we reduce consumption, if rates go up, we don't achieve savings. So we're working very hard to reduce consumption. We have some ideas. We've got a number of PV projects. The community colleges have been extremely innovative in using performance funding so that essentially the model is a contractor comes in, fixes like an HVAC system, makes it more energy efficient, and the project is funded out of the energy savings. So that's been pretty good, and frankly at the community colleges that's also helped address our deferred maintenance backlog there as well. And then the third piece of this is that our 21st century facilities, it's not just the backlog, but they've got to be modernized. So if we take an engineering building that opened up 1970, Peter? So 1970 Holmes Hall, and it has a deferred maintenance backlog, but if we eliminated that entire backlog, it would not be a facility that is designed and developed to teach 21st century engineering. So we not only have to eliminate the backlog, but we have to thoughtfully modernize at the same time. So that has to do with our teaching facilities, our research facilities. People don't even teach the same way they did in the 1950s. In many of our buildings, they are vintage 50s, 60s, and 70s when there was a huge boom, particularly on the UH Manoa campus. And they need to be safe. There is a strong, in Congress, there are new bills coming out, and the Department of Education is pushing very hard to create safer environments and ensure gender equity. There's an interpretation or an amendment to the Clery Act, which is the basic campus safety law, called VAWA, the Violence Against Women Act, that has a number of new requirements. And we need to make some substantial investments both in our campus infrastructure, but also in programs to support and promote safety of women, but everyone on our campus, students, faculty, and members of the community. So the third big initiative, so first was Hawaii Graduation Initiative. That's about graduating more students. Second is 21st Century Facilities. Our next one is the High Performance System of Higher Education. So there's two key words there. One is high performance, and what that's about is improving our effectiveness and our operations and our organization. So that's our structure, that's our business practices, that's efficient use of our facilities, our classrooms, that's investing in our people, growing our own leaders, making sure people are up to date on their practices. It's the use of metrics so that we can see how we're doing, and ensuring full transparency in our budgeting and our financing. And I can assure you that our regents are really pushing very hard on these. It's becoming more sustainable. So we have made two changes. Traditional universities that have a mission of teaching, research, and public service. UH is no different. UH Manoa pushes much harder on research than other pieces of the system, but we have many, many community college faculty who are doing research as well, and we applaud that, and they bring that into their teaching, and it's part of what makes our teaching in our community colleges so fabulous, as well as our community college faculty's engagement in the community through the public service mission. But we've made two changes to that mission in the past decade or so. Under President McLean's leadership, about a decade ago, the Board of Regents embraced in our mission statement our commitment to be a model Indigenous serving university. And that crosses, well, I'll come back to that one, but that crosses scholarship, that crosses our commitment to our students, to our faculty and staff, and promotion of culture and language. So that's a chunk of what we do, and we're beginning to track metrics on those things as well. How well are we teaching Native Hawaiian culture and practice on our campuses? It turns out, little known fact, although I gave you a pretty good hint just now, what do you think the highest enrollment class at the University of Hawaii is? What would you guess? Hawaiian Studies 107. Yeah, interesting, huh? So, that's part of what we do as well. The second new aspect of our mission that we embrace in this high-performance system is sustainability. And the Board of Regents embraced sustainability in our mission in January at a meeting at Kauai Community College, where we saw some great demonstrations of what they're doing on their campus, and that impacts teaching. We have green job training programs. It embraces research. The Hawaii Natural Energy Institute at UH Manoa is probably the strongest energy research activity in the state, not probably. And it's the way we manage our facilities. It's our commitment to conservation, and it's our commitment to green energy practices on our campuses. Another aspect of a high-performance system is about the word system. So for us, the University of Hawaii is just unique in higher education throughout this country, in having our community colleges, our baccalaureate institutions, and our research university inside one system under one president with one board of regents. Things that it takes a legislature to pass laws on in other states, we can do within the University of Hawaii just by collaboration and policy. And we do have the best approach to moving students from community colleges into four-year institutions of anyone in the country. Our support with that is amazing, both in the community colleges and on our four-year campuses. And this is a sea change from certainly 20 years ago. Our four-year campuses viewed transfers from community colleges that was a failure. That was a student who didn't come here when they were a freshman, and why do we want them now? Because they're inferior to our students. And we are so over that today. Our faculty have embraced it, our administrators have embraced it, and we have systems, practices, and policies in place. We're not 100% there in every discipline, and I won't claim everything is perfect, but it's going pretty well. And the last area I want to mention in this one is financing. So here's the brief story, and former Representative Sean will point out that our tuition has grown among the fastest in the country. We've more than doubled, certainly over the last decade. So we're somewhere in terms of increase in tuition, percentage per student, or increase in tuition, we're probably certainly in the 45 to 50th, which is not a place we want to be. That said, there's a very simple reason. Our decrease in state appropriations for public higher education in this state is also in that 45 to 50. So as the dollars of general funds appropriated by the legislature have disappeared, the University of Hawaii has raised tuition. That's our only other source of operating funds. And none of us are happy about that, but that is what has happened. What I will say is the only saving grace here is that our tuition started so low that even as we have more than doubled tuition, we're now at a point where we're, depending on how you do it, but I think it's a fairly safe and accurate statement to say we're around our peers for our resident tuition. We're still a very affordable set of colleges and universities in the state. But clearly this is a time that the brakes have to go on. When we have hit that point, we can't go back to the well. The regents are not comfortable raising tuition. They're not even comfortable with the tuition increases that were approved in 2010. And so they're looking very hard and challenging us as the administration to see whether or not we can roll back any of the previously approved tuition increases for the next 2 years. So we're now crafting a biennium budget proposal that we will bring forth to the governor and then to next year's legislature to really talk about the things that we hope the state of Hawaii can invest in and the kinds of things that we need to invest in with the tuition dollars that we manage on campus as well. We also need to look at other sources of revenue. So I think everybody has seen the news about the freeze at UH Manoa. So clearly managing our costs is a big part of what we need to do, and we need to pay attention. And we have we've worked very hard over these past months to come up with a set of efficiency metrics. So I've talked quite a bit about what I would refer to as productivity metrics. How many students are we graduating? How fast are they graduating? We have some for all of our initiatives. How fast are we reducing our energy consumption? We also have a set of metrics around efficiency that we're looking at. How many faculty, how many student semester hours? So a typical class is 3 credits, that's 3 semester hours. How many semester hours are our faculty, are we getting from our instructional faculty? What's our faculty-student ratio? What's our administrator-staff ratio? What's our staff-student ratio? So do we have the right workforce? Are we getting the work out of them? Are we getting use out of our classroom facilities, or do we need to build more? So that's really looking at the cost side. But I think we also have to look pretty seriously at our revenue side as well. So I'll just give you a few ideas that we've started working on. One is growing international student enrollment. Kapi'olani Community College, I want to say 10% of the students are international, and 40% of the tuition revenue, 50% of the tuition revenue. So there's a model for how one can do that. We just met with a group of the system-wide international program people, in fact, about how we do our recruiting, and we met with, turns out Representative Ken Ito has an interest in this. He's working on an Ed D degree. And so we met with him to get some ideas. But there's lots that we can do together across the UH system, back to that high-performance system model. Rather than having each campus send a recruiter to China, how do we do it? And I see my friend Rich here. How do we work better with the East-West Center? I mean, every East-West Center graduate is a UH graduate. That's where they go to school when they're here. That's where that's the researchers that they collaborate with. And in my opinion, there's more we can do together that's good for UH and good for the East-West Center. UH has about 17,000 acres of land. That is not all occupied by our campuses. And so identifying what are the revenue opportunities. I mean, clearly our first mission and responsibility is to our education and research program, but some of those parcels appear to have some commercial value. Some of them might be able to be swapped with other institutions. So we won't be a Kamehameha Schools out of that, but certainly, every little bit helps. And finally, let me mention philanthropy. UH has had good success, but fairly modest in philanthropy. But there is money in this state, and really targeting where that money is, particularly, if anybody's ever been to Kona and looked at the planes in the airport, there is money in this state, and it's money that has been earned by people who have an interest in Hawaii and who have an interest in higher education and the things we do. Now, most of that money isn't going to help us with our operating budget, but it can help us with a lot of the things that we need to do and help offload much of what we have to do from our operating budget. So those are some ideas about looking at the revenue side as well as continuing to just squeeze on the cost side. So let me close with the fourth initiative, and that's the Hawaii Innovation Initiative. So that's probably closest to the heart of, Think Tech Hawaii. And this was kicked off by President Greenwood, really working closely with the community, the Hawaii Business Roundtable, the National Academy of Sciences. She had a fabulous symposium here in 2011 with world-class speakers looking at what we needed to do. And I should acknowledge the guy who really pushed this with her and continues to push it is Jim Lally, who a retired venture capitalist, now living in Kona, who said to President Greenwood, research is really important, and we've spent a lot of time talking about the importance of UH research in commercialization and generating revenue. And what he said is, just the act of UH doing research stimulates this economy, and that alone should be a sector. And we're so reliant, as all of you in this room know, on our hospitality industry and military spending. Those are incredibly vulnerable to forces outside of our control, such as our two friendly storms bearing our way today. Think about what happened to the island of Kauai after Iniki hit. And if one of those hits Waikiki, Wailea, think about if any of you are working with the defense industry, sequestration, really squeeze that industry as well. Those are not stable, and they're not under our control. Our own research and innovation industry is under our control, and it creates great jobs for the next generation, for us and the next generation. And so the question, the agreement was reached, really $1 billion research and innovation industry. Now, Jim, I saw him last week in Kona when I was meeting potential donors. He wants to see a $1.5 billion research and innovation industry. I'm kind of going out there with $1 billion because I'm fairly conservative. UH currently does about $400 million a year in research. We were higher during the ARRA stimulus days, but we've held our own better than most universities around the country as that funding disappeared. But it isn't just us, but we need to drive it. UH is the primary research institution in this state, and this can't succeed without us. So we started with an idea, and it was sort of formulaic to just say our most productive researchers generate in the range of $10 million a year. So if we had 50 more of those, we could generate another $500 million, and that would take us up to about $1 billion. Well, that turns out to give you one idea of how to do it, but we're taking a more nuanced approach now. So let me say a little bit about that. The first piece is really investing in our current researchers. We have great researchers at UH, and including UH Hilo, and some in our community colleges as well. And we need to understand the barriers. We are a state institution, and we have, I know this will shock you, occasionally things seem a little bureaucratic and procedural. So identifying those, understanding them, and overcoming them, and it just takes relentless attention. Most of them, it's not illegal to change things. In some cases, it may be illegal, and then we go back to our friends at the legislature and we ask for help with the laws that are causing us problems. But we have identified the areas, and they're the areas that you all know: astronomy, ocean sciences, health sciences and wellness, sustainability. But we've identified, and it's interesting because I didn't drive this. You would think I would have from my background, but they didn't let me in the room at the beginning of this. But one of the things our deans talked about was, if we're going to do the best oceanographic research, if we're going to do the best astronomy research, if we're going to do the best medical research, we need better capacity in data-intensive science and engineering, so big data. And it turns out that has not been a strength of our UH research capability. So we're making a substantial investment in that, not because we want to be the best at big data, although that would be great, but because that's an area of infrastructure capacity that we need to continue to be the best in astronomy, oceanography, cancer research, health sciences. So that cuts across all of it. And so we've identified that as a priority, and Monday I clicked the submittal of a $20 million proposal to NSF, 5 years statewide, to build up our capacity, and we framed it around coral reef health, which is really essential to Hawaii sustainability moving forward, because we needed a scientific hook, but it's really about building our big data capacity to support science and innovation across the state. We've also got some work to do on our incentives and rewards. We're working on a proposed amendment, I know this will go over really well, to the state ethics code in order to enable our researchers who invent something to participate in a startup that advances that. And it seems sort of obvious that you would want the person who invented it to participate in it, but we have run, sadly, afoul of the state ethics code, which says public employees shouldn't be working both sides of that fence. So we're getting some ideas from other states on that particular one. So that gives you an idea of the kinds of things we want to do to support our current researchers to make them more effective. We also have a set of strategies around engagement with the community. We have, and David, were you on the committee for the OTED? So we had an office that was established about 25 years ago called the Office of Tech Transfer and Economic Development. It has been directorless for some years, and we have recruited and brought 2 finalists in. They were both from other places, it turned out, and we brought the community in to help us vet these people, including David. We haven't yet made a hire, but we're very excited about revitalizing that office and taking it beyond tech transfer, but into a full-scale commercialization office. We're working much more closely, I think, safe to say, Susan, than ever before, between what goes on in our new Vice President for Research and Innovation, who I should acknowledge, Vasilis Sirmos, an internal hire, an engineer out of Peters College and then from the Manoa campus, who is really building bridges within the university and with the community in a way we haven't seen for quite some time. And so everything that he's doing around entrepreneurship leverages the work that Susan's been doing in PACE for many years successfully, with the College of Business, with the College of Engineering, and with our other science-based programs that are focused on innovation. I'll just give you a couple of examples. In fact, today, this morning, once again at the Board of Regents, the bachelor's in entrepreneurship in the College of Business, which was a relatively new program, moved formally from what is called provisional to established status. So it's a very successful program that we have declared permanent and will be continuing to invest in. The most exciting, probably two new activities. One is we have done a soft launch of our first accelerator. So it's called Cleverly XLR8UH. If you Google it, you'll see it. We intentionally did it as a soft launch. And the idea here is that we've invited our UH, not just our faculty, that's the old model, our faculty and our students, graduates and undergraduates, to bring out their innovative ideas, and then we look at how we might understand which of those ideas might have commercial applicability. So it's about vetting, is there a market for it? Is the idea workable? And all of those things, very low scale. The first grants are in the range of about $50,000, and it follows a regular model. We provide acceleration support, mentors, community, understanding, and we can move them through a pipeline till they can move into the more traditional capital markets. So we're looking at bringing in about 10 or so UH projects that we're growing, but that we will nurture ourselves. And this is a great partnership with many in the community, HSDC, the UH Foundation, and as we started working with them on the Upside Fund, which invests UH Foundation endowment in UH startups, and our first couple look like they're going pretty well. And lastly, I'll mention our interest in continuing to work even formally with the community. San Diego has been a very interesting model for us for over 10 years. And those of you who may have known San Diego in the 60s and 70s, it's a very interesting analog to us because it was a town of tourism and defense contracting. And that's what went on there. And it has become a hotbed of research, science, and innovation. Healthcare, health technology, communications and information technologies, and the key partner in all of that has been the University of California, San Diego, which was a relatively new campus at the time and understood what it needed to do with and for its community. So let me close this section by saying, so as lots of you know, I didn't apply for this job, and I was nominated, and long story, here I am. But the reason ultimately I agreed to do it, and I haven't yet rethought that, the reason I agreed to do it is that this institution is so important to the state. I do not believe there is anything in the state of Hawaii that is more important to our collective future than the University of Hawaii system and the work we're doing on every island and in every community, teaching, research, community engagement, and that's why I agreed to do that. So over to you. Thank you.
Stay here.
Okay.
We have 20 questions.
Oh my God.
Let me make some selections.
I'm going to just pull my water. I'm not trying to escape out the back door.
Okay. Okay, we have the 20 questions, and I have all the questions on my little list on the iPad, and I'm going to pick ones that seem interesting. Sometimes you've touched on them, sometimes not. Okay, but we'll have a really good discussion about this. And while David is answering these questions, you can ask follow-up questions. It's okay.
Okay.
Okay, how do you intend to specifically address the negative perception in the public eye? Not necessarily referring to things that have just happened, although we'd like to hear about that, but things that have happened over the last few years.
So I have a couple of approaches to that. One is when we make a mistake, we need to just say it. And it's a lot easier to say, whoops, and Here's what we learned from that. And I mean, one of my and I drive people crazy with this personally, but I'm always looking backwards to think about what did I learn from that. And even if something goes really well, then I always think, well, what would have made it great? And I think we acknowledge it. We learn our lessons. We make the fixes so the same thing doesn't happen again. I mean, there are plenty of things that we can do wrong. We have about 10,000 employees. So you mentioned at the beginning, we're big. So we're about a $1.5 billion a year running through UH, all sources of funding and expenditures. 10,000 or so employees, 60,000 students across the state, 50 plus facilities where we have people learning, teaching, doing research on 6 islands. There's a lot that can go wrong. And, if I wanted to be paralyzed every day with what somebody might do wrong, nobody would be able to do anything. So we just need to take it, be forthright. We need to communicate positively about the stuff we're doing also. And I think we can do a better job of communicating positively. I don't think we can drive out the mistakes because, if it bleeds, it leads, as they say in the TV business. And so, those things will draw attention. And, UH obviously gets a lot of scrutiny, and deservedly so. I mean, we're a big part of the state. People should care about UH. But I don't think it turns around in a day. But I think if we can just get people thinking more about the really good stuff and not focused on individual micro decisions, but on the macro image of UH. And I'll be reaching out to people. There are, I don't come out of a sort of strategic communication PR background, but there are plenty of people in this town who love UH, who want to help. And I'll be looking to some of those folks for more specific ideas.
And Native Hawaiian and sports, are there plans for more scholarships for local students coming from Hawaii public schools?
I don't know. What do you think, Jim? So right now it's very interesting. UH right now at our 4-year campuses, about 20% of our tuition, well, not about, we have the board set a target of 20% of the tuition we collect is returned to students in the form of financial aid. Most of that is what we call need-based aid. So the story looks pretty good for very low-income students, and there's a federal approach to understanding the cost of education, what is the expected family contribution, and you can jigger them and you might not like them, but that qualifies you for federal financial aid, and it also is one of the ways that we decide where to assign our institutional aid. This is another one of those areas where a dialogue with the community and the legislature would be interesting. So I was at this White House Summit on Higher Education in January that I attended. Janet Napolitano, the head of the University of California system, stood up. And at UC, they take 30% of their tuition and they return it as financial aid. So for us to do that now, that would be cutting that much of our operating budget to do it. And in California, they do that in addition to a multi-billion-dollar state scholarship program. So we do not have in this state a robust state scholarship program. We have a very small, it's called B+ program. So I think $3 to $4 million, something like that. And it goes to a very specific set of students. So I don't see great prospects. The best prospect, I think, for scholarships, donors love to fund scholarships. Seriously. So I sign donation agreements all the time, and scholarship support for students is the most common thing that we get money for from philanthropists. And unless the state situation improves, I think that's going to be the case.
Including the people here in this room.
Including people in this room.
Okay, this one got by me before, but the question is, can UH help stem the talent train?
Yeah.
You all know that, out of the high schools, especially the private high schools, a high percentage of kids don't even look at UH. They go to the mainland, and we lose them for their lives and careers. So what can UH do to reverse that?
So here's an interesting factoid. What do you think the single most popular destination for Punahou graduates is? UH Manoa. So now, that doesn't mean the majority of students stay there, but the single institution. So here's what I'd say. There's lots of good reasons for kids to go away to college. And if somebody's going to, UW, MIT, Stanford, I'm all for it. And if a kid wants to go away to school or the parents want them to go away to school, that's great. I mean, there are very good reasons for people to do that, or they're going to their parents' alma mater. I guess when I see students going, not to pick on UNLV, but, someplace that isn't as good as UH Manoa, frankly, that's what I would like to stem, the perception that people are settling for UH. And I do think, we're trying to recruit a new director of enrollment management. And this is a relatively new profession in higher education. So the model used to be you go to the college fairs and you tell kids about your college and you hope they show up. And now it's all about targeting, being strategic, thinking about what you have to do to get them there, how you support them after they arrive. And that's absolutely critical to our future. I would also say, and I touched on this in my remarks, students have to believe that if they want to stay home, that the curricula available to them within the UH system, whichever campus they go to, will prepare them for something they want to do here. And I think we've come a long way in that as well.
Okay, I guess we'd have to get to this today.
I'm not turning around.
Do you have anyone in mind to take over the Manoa Chancellor position yet? And I was handed a sheet of paper with a handwritten question. It's so close that I want to ask that too. Is Dr. Apple's hiring freeze in line with UH current and future strategy? Would it still be effective after his 2 years completion? I'm not sure I understand that, but maybe you can make something of it.
I'll take the second one. So I'm on record. We're on a fast path, but I'm meeting with all of the campus constituencies to solicit their ideas, both in the characteristics they want to see in an interim chancellor, and if they have specific names, I'm listening. So I've got about 6 or 7 meetings over, a 7 to 10 day period, and I do not have a selection. Yeah. I welcome ideas from the crowd as well.
Okay. Well, we're going to have an opportunity for people to come up and talk to you afterwards.
Okay.
So, okay. Here's another one. There is so much IP generated at UH that is, quote, stuck there. What is your plan? You talked about this a little. What is your plan to help commercialize this tech? Another potential revenue stream.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that is absolutely one of the revenue streams that we're looking at. We have not done well. And this is one of the reasons that we made a very high priority hiring a new director for OTED and retitled it, frankly, Director of Commercialization, because there's lots of ways to commercialize. And it was interesting because before I was in this job, I actually chaired the search for the new vice president for research and innovation, and I was on the committee for the search for a new vice chancellor for research. So we interviewed by video conferencing probably about 20 very smart people, and this was one of the questions we asked. And one of the things that they said to us is the model of licensing your technology, that is an older model. And that's not the primary model for generating revenue and commercialization. It's getting the IP into a company that begins to make money and then making money through the company rather than trying to get licensing fees, which become a part of their cost base. So if you believe in your technology, you can grow revenue that way. And by the way, going back onto the philanthropy side, when one of our students or faculty becomes very wealthy based on the work that they've done at UH, that's another opportunity for revenue. It doesn't have to be cash in that goes straight in.
Also encourages a lot of other kids.
It encourages a lot of other kids as well. Yeah.
It's to me like a coiled spring. You have all this incipient IP. You make a container. All of a sudden, it explodes.
And this Accelerate UH approach is really about more actively drawing out those ideas too. So rather than waiting for someone to show up and say, "I have an idea. Does this look patentable?" Let's get in early. And again, PACE has done a great job, as Susan walks out the door, through the business plan competitions and the like, where we've really done a lot of work getting students engaged in entrepreneurship with their ideas.
President Greenwood had a tech advisory council for a couple of years. I don't know where it went actually at the end, but I wonder if that's still in existence and whether you intend to carry it forward.
So, she had an innovation council, which was really responsible for that conference. We've been talking about that. So the Hawaii Business Roundtable, to be honest, has been the community group that has really had the most sustained interest in this. And if you know Gary Kai, he's relentless, and he's relentless. But we're talking with them, and they've really driven much of this from the community side. And one of the things that we've looked at as a model, which again comes from San Diego, is they started an organization called Connect. And it pulls together, it is a community-based nonprofit that deeply involves UCSD, the university there. And so personally, I'd like to lay low a little bit. We're engaging many community members on many specific ideas and projects. But if the community is really going to step up and build a community organization, then I would like to use that rather than create something duplicative, if that works out.
Are you going to look at the 2008 UH climate goals? I'm not familiar myself. Climate goals that have not been met, and take action to meet them. What are some ways you would do that?
Yeah.
With what schools and so forth?
Wow. This is a very sad commentary that I didn't know there were 2008 climate goals. I have seen some campus goals. So one of the commitments we made starting in January obviously much sooner than January, but the new board policy on sustainability wraps this up. So we've had, one of the greatest things about working on sustainability is the students have really been driving us. So it's just wonderful to get involved in something where, the best ideas, the most enthusiasm is coming out of the youngest people within our institution. It really gives a very high energy to it. And that new policy requires us to begin to set some benchmarks in sustainability. Energy consumption is the first target for us because it also impacts our bottom line so severely across the system. So I mentioned a couple of things already. The community college performance funding reduced their energy costs. We had a project at Moore Hall at UH Manoa where, again, replacing the HVAC, we took the energy costs down by about 40%. So some of it is through the renovation process and maintaining and modernizing our facilities. We've got PV projects pretty much throughout the UH system. I do have this harebrained idea for a utility scale PV farm on some of our West Oahu lands if we can figure out how to work with HECO to bring that energy to our UH campuses, because it's not co-located with our campuses. So I'm going to talk with them about that. I think we're scheduled this month. And then, of course, our new projects. We have to build our new projects in a sustainable manner. So we've got Seymour is LEED Platinum. That's a great facility. Our new IT building, my baby, we're looking at LEED Silver, which is pretty darn good for a data center, which is a total energy hog. So we're definitely making that commitment moving forward.
The solar thing, it sounds terrific. Okay, here's, now, there's always a question like this, David. I apologize for it, but here it is. No? Yes. What about UH being a leader in medical marijuana? We need to know.
I forget the answer. No. It's not on my radar. I can check with Dean Hedges. But does anybody know? I haven't heard about it. Yeah. Personally, as an economic driver, could be huge for this state. I mean, not for the university, but for the state. Huge.
As an IT person, and you certainly are, that was a spectacular project with the computer building there. They call it the Lassner building, right?
So you can't really call it the Lassner building until I've been dead for 5 years or really wealthy.
As an IT person, what are your thoughts on increasing and improving long-distance learning? And I guess that means the MOOCs program, which is fairly active on the mainland, but not so active at UH. What do you think?
So UH actually has a superb distance learning program. We've been doing statewide distance learning since I think our first statewide course came out of the College of Education in 1991 by television. We still do interactive television to every island, Molokai, Lanai. We had a Master's of Social Work graduate from UH Manoa in Hana last year. So that's the stuff that goes on that doesn't necessarily get the headlines. Every year, so I like to go to, one of the graduations I like to go to is at Maui College. And every year we have about 100 students on Maui who get degrees and certificates from campuses on other islands. UH Manoa, UH West Oahu, UH Hilo. A lot of those are online. We have over 1,000 online courses a semester with over 20,000 student enrollments. A lot of our degree programs are graduate level. They're targeting adults and professionals. That's education, that's nursing. We have an online doctoral degree in nursing. So there's lots of this going on, not in the headlines. A lot of it has moved to online, and I'll make a couple comments. I got interviewed about this also by Kaleo recently. So MOOCs are really interesting, and personally, my background, I got involved in computers, and my ticket to Hawaii was about computer-based education, which is what we used to call it before online learning. But that's what got me interested in this stuff back in the 70s, before the internet and before the PC. So when the MOOCs came out, there were two things that were different, I think. One was this idea of doing a class for 150,000 students. And, that turns out not to work so well. If you're actually thinking about a real course where students would end up with credits and documenting that they learned something, the completion rates are typically in the low single-digit percentages on those things. The other thing that was really interesting about MOOCs was venture capital comes to online education. And when venture capital came to online education, all of a sudden, a huge amount of attention. So what I will say is that we do face a higher education crisis, a change in Hawaii as well as the rest of the country. So the numbers, and I didn't give you the dismal part, but the numbers I showed you, what we have to do to educate more students in the state, not just UH, and this is true around the country, we can't afford to keep investing at a linear pace. So if you're going to double the number of students, you can't double your budget. You can't do it for free, and I'm not saying more with less, but we do have to find more efficient ways to still provide very high quality education. It is impossible for me to imagine that technology isn't part of that solution. So the MOOC guys promised, this is the answer. Invest in me. And they turn out, in my opinion, not to have the answer, but they got a national dialogue going that was never going to happen with me talking about 100 graduates on Maui or an MSW student in Hana. They got something going that has really got some attention. The last thing I'll say about MOOCs, which I find really interesting, is I absolutely believe they are a fabulous outreach tool. So if we take our best faculty members and we get them out in front of the world, that's great PR for UH. People can learn things. They don't necessarily need credit. And you're promoting the institution and you're helping promote lifelong learning, but you're not replacing a college education.
Shifting a little. Out of the 4 strategic directions you mentioned, which one do you think will help balance the UH budget the most? And I suppose you could talk about the budget in general, but which is the most promising in that regard?
Well, I'll just hit, 3, because I don't know how the numbers, I mean, if we educate more students, we bring in more tuition, and that's more dollars. So at a gross level, growing enrollment brings in more dollars. Unfortunately, we spend them on education, so they don't grow. I mean, not unfortunately. Fortunately, we spend them on education, but it grows our revenue to serve more students. Resident tuition doesn't pay the cost of education, though. So you sort of, the more you have, you don't really make it up in quantity somewhere along the line, unless we're developing new models. Innovation, I think we just hit it. We talked about commercialization. Clearly, one Google, one Sun Microsystems, one new drug, that can change the economics of a university pretty substantially. And as I mentioned, part of our high-performance system really looks at diversifying our revenue sources and managing our costs and being very efficient in our both administration and academic mission. So 3 of them are really focused on that. Our facilities, probably less so.
Physical security, strategy for mass notification, emergency communications campus-wide, and plans to centralize security operations, leveraging IP-based systems. What do you think? I mean, what's there now? What needs to be there? What can be there?
So our campuses right now pretty much all have sort of the blue phones and for calling in. Some of our campuses have speaker-based systems, not all of them for doing alerts. Campuses that don't have speaker-based systems, there's generally vehicles that are equipped with bullhorns, seriously. So if we have to evacuate a part of campus or all of a campus, we can do that. So we're definitely making those investments on all of our campuses. We have... certainly we use our institutional email for lots of our notifications if they're non-emergency. For emergency notification, we have a text messaging system. So we developed our own. It's got a little front end where I can go online and I can send a text message to Manoa faculty, UH Hilo students, or everybody at UH. We've been using those things over the last 2 days as we announced our campus closures. Where we might move forward, we're going to look at some of the commercial packages, which are significantly more sophisticated and robust, also significantly more expensive. So this is an area, though, where you don't want to be cheap. And we're also looking at, right now we have what's called an opt-in system. So every semester we ask all of our faculty, staff, and students, give us your cell phone number so that we can send you text alerts. And we're trying to think about whether we might go to an opt-out system. We have that for most of our students anyway as part of the application process, and just say, we're going to send you text messages unless you do something specific to get out. So that's where we are on that stuff.
About energy. Okay. Our energy workforce is growing without qualified candidates from UH. You mentioned HNEI, which is a leader not only in Hawaii but in the country in doing research. But in terms of implementing the Hawaii Energy Initiative, Clean Energy Initiative, we probably need a workforce that will be sophisticated, will understand exactly how to make that happen. Are you looking at adding facility managers, courses, programs to realize Hawaii's destiny as a clean energy state?
So we do this in two places I know. One is in our community colleges. We got, in 2012, we got one of the largest workforce development grant in the country out of the first round of these federal C3T grants from the Department of Labor. So $25 million, and we identified several workforce development areas where we work with industry to develop and deliver training programs, and one of them definitely was in green energy jobs. So that's at the community college level, and whoever asked, I can try and figure out who to connect you with to see if there's a connection that needs to be made. I think at the baccalaureate level, I would look at, unfortunately, Dean Crouch, who is here, and I'm guessing that you probably can't get out of mechanical and or civil engineering anymore without knowing something about energy and its role in those fields? Mechanical and electrical. Yeah, okay. Yeah, and civil, you got to build to it too. So, so it's pervasive, but it's not an energy engineering degree. But Dean Crouch so that would be an example of one of our academic leaders who has a community advisory council that gives him plenty of advice. Yeah.
The last question, given the time, and it's one that was handed to me, not on the system. Sorry about that, Alex. The current hiring freeze is doing serious damage to UH Manoas, this person says. Could you re-examine that policy and target cuts so that units which are causing the problems are required to solve them?
So, it's a sort of inside baseball in the university system. So I had nothing to do with issuing that hiring freeze. It is administered at this point by the UH Manoa campus, which I agree was facing a significant structural financial shortfall. A freeze is a pretty blunt tool, and especially at the beginning. I do know that the vice chancellors are empowered to provide exceptions. They're being asked on a daily basis. They are examining those, and they are granting exemptions where appropriate and where affordable. The biggest focus I know right now is on making sure that students have all the courses that they need to keep on track. And that is bred deep into the core of all of the vice chancellors as they're reviewing these requests. They're also looking, I know, at impacts on students and student hires and special cases. There are a lot of those. I think everyone would like to get to a more nuanced approach that does exactly what that question asked, to say where exactly are the issues. And I know as part of this, the vice chancellors have reinstated a practice that the campus used to follow, where all of the units had annual budget reviews looking at how did you do last year, what are you planning to do this year, where are you going to go. So I think the future is brighter.
David, would you mind giving us, off your various initiatives, say 4 or 5 of them, and we can put them out to the crowd here and have them rank those
Sure.
initiatives in terms of how they feel about them?
Sure. Ready? Yep. Hawaii Graduation Initiative. Yep. Hawaii Innovation Initiative. 21st century facilities. High performance system.
Set them up for ranking, and you guys could go back on your phones. You'll see them on your phones, and you can help us rank them and see how you feel about them from this discussion.
So that's improving our efficiency, effectiveness, accountability, and leveraging the power of the whole UH system across all 10 campuses on all islands, plus some other stuff. Sustainability's in there, model indigenous serving universities in there. See,
Who knows?
Nobody wants to invest in that deferred maintenance backlog. Come on, you guys. We need some help there. There you go.
Okay? All right. All right, well, that's great, David. Why don't you take a minute now and summarize the takeaway points you would leave with this organization? And for the matter, you know, we're putting this on OC16 this coming weekend. It will be played several times. So, query, what would you leave with our audience?
I said this before, so I'll be brief. I truly believe that the University of Hawaii is the most important institution to the future of the state. We've got a great set of initiatives to move it forward, and I hope each and every one of you can support us in every way you can, including sharing your ideas for improvement with us. Thanks.
David, to commemorate and congratulate you on your ascension to president of the University of Hawaii, really quite something. We'd like to present you with a special memento. It is a unique object. It is a thinktechhawaii.com ball cap. May you wear it in good health. It's the special order of the Friends of ThinkTech is what it is. We hope you wear it around campus. Maybe you get some special looks down there. If you wear it downtown, well, I need not say, everybody will know. In fact, maybe you should consider carrying them at the bookstore. Big seller. Anyway, thanks so much. Congratulations again. How about another round of applause for David Lassner? Okay. Now, the audio of this program has been broadcast, and it can be found on Spreaker.com and on ThinkTech Hawaii. And starting Sunday at 10:30 p.m., you'll see parts, at least parts of David's comments on our show ThinkTech Hawaii on OC16. Our next Downtown Forum program is entitled High Tech Medicine in Hawaii. Where do we draw the line? It's an ethical question and a technological question. It's on August 27th right here at Laniakea. Sign up to reserve your seats. We gave you flyers. Now, if you'd like to compare notes with Dr. Lassner, he's going to stay a minute, I hope. And we're hoping he will, and you can come around and chat with him. In the meantime, we'll be walking around with our camera to take sound bites for our little OC16 movie, so you could think of something good to say to us as we say hi. Anyway, aloha, everyone. Thanks for coming today.